The Imperial dreadnought Eternus hung in orbit over Colony Beta, 9 like a steel leviathan, its massive hull bristling with weapons meant to intimidate entire civilizations into submission. Within its glittering command hall, Galactic General Crofthor reclined on a throne of obsidian alloy, talons tapping a bored rhythm on the armrest. His scaled skin shimmered in hues of deep blue and violet under the filtered starlight, and his serpentine eyes scanned a cluster of sycophants who dared not meet his gaze. "Humans," he hissed, the word dripping disdain. "A juvenile species obsessed with fermented liquids, primitive projectiles, and ritualistic pair bonding. They are an infestation of irrationality." A smattering of polite laughter rippled through the crowd of alien dignitaries, none willing to correct the general, though a few shifted nervously. It was common knowledge that Crofthor considered himself an expert in xenobiology, despite failing to understand the nuances of species he deemed beneath him. "Soon," he continued, his voice swelling to fill the chamber, "they will learn their place. The Galactic Union tolerates them only because of Earth's mineral wealth and proximity to trade lanes. But discipline, that is my gift to the lesser races." A faint chime from his adjutant's datapad interrupted his monologue. "General," the aide murmured, "your planetary inspection is due. Shall I have the dropship prepared?" "Do so. Let us see how these apes grovel in person." The colony bar smelled of fried food, engine grease, and desperation, 3 constants of any human settlement in the outer rim. Neon lights buzzed overhead as patrons hunched over their drinks, murmuring about supply shortages and unfair galactic tariffs. Cassie Turner, 7 months pregnant, navigated the narrow aisles with an armful of groceries and a determined scowl. Her belly bumped against a chair. "Sorry," she said automatically. The man seated there, a wiry mechanic, gave her a sympathetic nod. "No problem, Cass. You sure you don't want me to carry those for you?" "I'm fine," she said. "Johnny taught me to handle my own." At the mention of her husband's name, the mechanic's expression flickered, something like admiration mixed with a hint of fear. But before he could reply, the door slammed open with a hydraulic hiss. The bar fell silent. In strode General Crofthor, ducking beneath the doorway to accommodate his massive frame. 2 armored guards flanked him, their weapons glowing faintly in the dim light. The general's nostrils flared as he took in the room. "Primitive," he growled, "and it smells of hydrocarbons and animal fats." The bartender, a grizzled man with more scars than teeth, didn't flinch. "We call it comfort food," he said dryly. Crofthor stalked forward, each step making the floorboards creak. He pointed a clawed finger at a cluster of humans. "Your presence here offends the harmony of the Galactic Union. Your emotional excesses are a threat to order, and your incubation habits are unsightly." Cassie would try to edge past him on her grocery bag tour, sending soda cans clattering across the floor. She bent awkwardly to retrieve them. "Move aside, breeding unit." Crofthor snapped. She straightened, meeting his alien eyes. "Excuse me," I said, his tail lashed. "You are obstructing my inspection." She shifted the groceries in her arms. "Then go around me. I'm not your servant." A sharp intake of breath rippled through the bar. Crofthor's eyes narrowed. Defiance from a human incubator. And then, before anyone could react, his clawed hand lashed out. The slap rang out like a gunshot, sending Cassie sprawling onto a table, groceries scattering. A can of soda hissed open, spraying sugary foam over the floor. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the bartender muttered, low but audible, "Oh, hell." Crofthor drew himself up to his full height. "Perhaps now you will learn respect." A heavy silence gripped the room. The mechanic leaned close to the bartender and whispered, Does he not know?" The bartender's mouth twitched. "Apparently not." Crofthor spread his arms in mock triumph. "Does any among you dare challenge me? Speak now, or forever accept your inferiority." From the corner, a drunk old miner let out a hoarse laugh. "Boy, you just dug your own grave." The general turned sharply. "What did you say?" The miner wiped his mouth. "You slapped Johnny Rains' wife." The color drained from several faces. A glass slipped from a waitress's trembling hand and shattered on the floor. Crofthor sneered. "Johnny Rains? Is that an insect of some sort? The bartender's chuckle was dark and humorless. He leaned forward on his elbows, fixing the towering alien with a steady gaze. "Son," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "you just slapped the wife of the man who entered the siege of Ganymede with nothing but a wrench and a roll of duct tape. You slapped the woman whose husband once taught a death planet's AI to feel guilt, and it self-destructed out of shame. You slapped the wrong damn human." Krovthor's sneer faltered. Legends, exaggerations. The old miner laughed again, this time louder. "Keep telling yourself that, lizard." As if on cue, the bar's ancient jukebox sparked to life. The distorted opening chords of Bad to the Bone growled through crackling speakers. Krovthor blinked. "What is that sound?" The bartender's lips curled into a grim smile. "It's your funeral march, boy." And somewhere far away, in a remote cabin on Earth, a comlink buzzed to life. A single message blinked on the screen. "Johnny, they hit Cassie." Johnny Rain set down his fishing knife, his jaw tightening as he stared at the horizon. A cold wind rustled through the trees. "Well then," he murmured, "guess it's time to stretch my legs." The camera cuts to the stars as the Imperial Dreadnought Eternus looms ominously over the colony. The morning on Earth was deceptively calm. In the Montana wilderness, the air smelled of pine sap and wood smoke as a light frost glimmered on the cabin roof. Inside, Johnny Rain sat barefoot in a worn recliner, gutting a trout with surgical precision. A battered cassette player hissed and warbled Eye of the Tiger as he hummed off key, knife flashing in the sunbeam cutting through the window. His face was rough-hewn, lined from years of war and worse things, but his hands moved with the steady confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. He paused only when his wrist comlink buzzed faintly on the table. With a flick of his thumb, the hollow display bloomed above his arm, bathing his face in pale blue light. Message received at 0900 hours. The AI intoned. The voice was clipped, British accented, with a faintly annoyed tone of an old secretary. From Colony Beta 9. Priority Alpha Red. Johnny's knife stilled, his brow furrowed. He hadn't heard from Beta 9 since Cassie had gone to visit her sister. "Play it," he said quietly. The AI complied. A shaky human voice filled the cabin. "John, it's bad. General Krovthor, he hit Cassie. I thought you should know." For a moment, the only sound in the cabin was the faint pop of the wood stove. Johnny stared into the flickering embers, the muscles in his jaw tight. Then he set down the trout with deliberate care and stood up slowly, as though every motion carried the weight of inevitability. "Doris," he said, his voice low but carrying a dangerous edge. "Yes, Johnny?" Prepped the Winnebago. A synthetic sigh echoed in the cabin. "So much for retirement. I knew we'd be back to galactic bloodbaths eventually. You never could leave well enough alone." "Doris." "Yes." "Prep it. Now." "Fine, but I'm not cleaning up the alien guts this time." Johnny reached on the floorboards and pulled out a long, dusty case. He popped it open to reveal a sleek, ancient plasma rifle. Across the stock, in Cassie's careful handwriting, was a single word: "Forgive." He ran his thumb over the inscription. "Not this time," he muttered. The Winnebago Mark II was, by any objective measure, a piece of junk. Once a terrestrial RV, Johnny had gutted it and rebuilt it for space travel with scrap parts and a reckless disregard for engineering standards. Rust streaked the sides, a cracked sticker reading "Earth or Bust" peeled from the hull, and the engines coughed like an asthmatic dog as they fired. "Engines are nominal," Doris announced dryly, "which is to say, they're only 60% likely to explode on launch. Would you like me to start your mixtape?" "Yes. Do you want Thunderstruck first or Highway to Hell?" "Surprise me." As the Winnebago thundered into orbit, Johnny leaned back in the pilot's chair, chewing gum like it was a combat maneuver. His mirrored aviators reflected the stars streaking past the viewport. Meanwhile, on the Galactic net, whispers of his impending arrival had already begun. In a smoky backroom of the Galactic Security Council, panicked diplomats gathered around a holoscreen, showing grainy footage of Johnny's Winnebago burning through hyperspace. "Who authorized this?" hissed the Sarkin bureaucrat, his 6 mandibles clicking furiously. "Why is he en route?" "Because said a nervous human ambassador. General Crawford slapped his wife. His mate? Yes, Cassie Rains. Silence. An ancient, tentacled alien cleared its throat. Do these humans place so much value on such partnerships? The ambassador swallowed hard. It's not about the partnership. It's about Johnny. What do you mean? You've heard of the siege of Ganymede? A reptilian minister nodded. The one where 3 million cyborgs were neutralized overnight. That was Johnny, with a wrench and duct tape. Nervous murmurs spread through the room. And the Omega AI of Deathworld V9? He convinced it to feel guilt. It self-destructed. A young diplomat whispered, horrified. What kind of creature is this man? The human ambassador met their eyes. He's American. Back aboard the Winnebago, Doris chirped. Incoming transmission, Johnny. Play it. Crawford's voice filled the cabin, smug and dripping venom. This is General Crawford of the Galactic Union. Human, I advise you to turn back. Your insignificant world is under our protection. Your primitive vengeance is illogical. Johnny smirked. Record a reply. Recording. Crawford, Johnny drawled. You're about to learn 2 things about humans. 1, we're real protective of our women. 2, we're real creative when it comes to payback. See you soon. Message sent. Doris said, Do you want me to initiate weapon systems? Not yet. Let him sweat. On Beta 9, panic spread to the ranks of Crawford soldiers. Officers barked conflicting orders as civilians whispered in terror and awe. Who's Johnny Rains? A young alien soldier asked nervously. A grizzled veteran spat on the ground. He's the human who once destroyed an entire armada because they called his mom fragile biomass. That's just a story, right? The veteran's expression was flat. Sure, you keep telling yourself that, rookie. Johnny reclined in the captain's chair as Earth music blared over the ship's rattling speakers. He loaded fresh energy cells into his plasma rifle with precise, almost lazy movements. Doris spoke again, a hint of concern in her otherwise sardonic voice. You know they'll throw everything they've got at you. Good. This time you might not make it out. I don't care. Why? Johnny's hand tightened around the rifle stock. Because he put his filthy hands on my Cassie. As the Winnebago roared into the alien capital's orbit, defense grids locked onto the old ship. But before a single shot could be fired, Johnny's voice cut across all frequencies. This is Johnny Rains. Tell Crawford I'm here for him. On the planet below, Crawford's clawed hands trembled ever so slightly as his advisors scurried about in chaos. Shall we prepare the fleet, sir? Crawford swallowed, his arrogance cracking like thin glass. Yes, and pray it's enough. The Winnebago began its descent, engines screaming, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what fear felt like. The Winnebago Mark II pierced the upper atmosphere of the alien capital like an ancient, wheezing meteor. Its hull rattled violently, paint peeling as it screamed through the clouds. A pair of sleek interceptor drones swooped in behind, their voices crackling over the comms. Unidentified human vessel. You're entering restricted airspace. Cut engines immediately or be... Johnny flipped a rusted switch. The Winnebago coughed, sputtered, and then expelled a thick cloud of black smoke that blinded the interceptors. Oops, he muttered, chewing his gum lazily. Guess my turn signals are busted. The interceptors swerved blindly into each other and exploded in a fireball that painted the sky orange. 2 down, Doris said, her voice edged with faux grandmotherly pride. You really are a menace, Johnny. Just warming up, Doris. Below, the sprawling metropolis was in chaos. Sirens wailed. Massive holograms blinked across the skyline, warning citizens to take shelter. News feeds replayed grainy footage of Johnny's battered Winnebago entering orbit. Alien anchors, their tentacles waving nervously, spoke in hushed tones. He's here, the human from Earth, the one they called Johnny Rains. At the heart of the city, General Crawford's command center was a hive of activity. Officers darted back and forth, screeching reports. Defense grids activated. Turrets turned skyward. He's just one human, Thor barked. A single soft-bodied biped focused the entire fleet on destroying his craft. A junior officer hesitated. Sir, the last time we concentrated firepower on a human ship, he rerouted the blast into our own fuel reserves. Thor's tail lashed the floor. That was a different human. The officer swallowed hard. It was Johnny Rain, sir. Thor's claws clenched. Deploy everything. I want him erased. Johnny's ship touched down with all the subtlety of a bowling ball hitting a glass floor. Metal groaned as the Winnebago's landing gear gave out, the RV tilting precariously to one side. Smooth as silk, Johnny said, grabbing his rifle and duffel bag. Smooth as a demolition derby, Doris muttered. As the hatch hissed open, Johnny stepped out in cowboy boots, a worn leather jacket, and mirrored aviators. The alien air smelled faintly of ozone and fear. A platoon of heavily armored soldiers waited in the courtyard, weapons trained on him. Behind them, massive mechs loomed like metallic titans. Johnny spat his gum onto the pavement. All right, boys. Who's first? They attacked as one. Blaster fire screamed through the air, scorching the ground where Johnny had been standing. Except he wasn't there anymore. He'd moved, quick as a thought, rolling behind a supply crate. Predictable, he muttered. From his bag, he pulled out an ancient Earth relic, a roll of duct tape. With a few deft motions, he taped a live grenade to a stray service drone and gave it a pat. Go make some friends. The drone zipped into the air, weaving drunkenly toward the soldiers. They stared at it in confusion for a single heartbeat before it detonated in a flash of light. One of the mechs lumbered forward, hydraulic pistons hissing. Surrender, human. Resistance is illogical. Yeah, Johnny muttered. So's wearing your power core on your chest. He yanked a plunger from his bag and hurled it with surprising force. The rubber cup slapped onto the mech's glowing core with a satisfying thwack. Sparks flew as the mech stumbled backward, its system shorting out. Johnny smirked. 10 points. In the control center, Thor watched the carnage unfold on the holoscreens, his scales paling. This isn't possible, he rasped. An aide whimpered. Sir, he's dismantling our entire regiment with household items. Focus the planetary defense grid on him. Thor roared. Burn that ape to ash. Outside, the sky darkened as energy cannons swiveled to aim at Johnny. Doris, Johnny said calmly. Yes, dear? Remember that Death World AI I reprogrammed for guilt? Of course. You're still on its Christmas card list. Patch me through. A low, sorrowful voice filled the comms. Johnny, is that you? You told me to be better. I need one last favor, Bud. Of course. Every cannon in the defense grid went silent. Then one by one, they swiveled and fired directly at Thor's own palace. As the command center trembled under bombardment, Thor clutched the edge of his throne. This human is chaos incarnate, he whispered. Johnny strolled to the smoking remains of the courtyard, stepping over scorched metal and groaning soldiers. He kicked open the grand doors of the palace with one boot. Thor, he shouted. His voice echoed through the marble halls like a war drum. The general stood at the far end, shaking but trying to mask it with bluster. Human, you are unhinged. You are illogical. Yeah, Johnny said, spitting out his gum and sticking it to his rifle stock. But you slapped my wife. Thor's claws twitched nervously. You can't kill me, he said desperately. I am a leader of the Galactic Union. I ain't here to kill you. Thor blinked. You're not. Johnny smirked, pulling a pair of fuzzy handcuffs from his duffel. I'm here to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. By the time the galaxy tuned into the emergency broadcast, they were greeted with a sight no one could have imagined. General Thor bound and gagged, wearing a bright pink tutu, forced to apologize on live holofeed. I deeply regret my actions, he mumbled, his voice muffled to the gag. Johnny leaned against the throne, polishing his aviators. That's better. As Johnny boarded his ship to leave, Doris spoke again. You really are insane, you know that? That's why Cassie married me. The Winnebago roared into the stars, leaving the alien world smoldering behind. Far below, one terrified soldier whispered, "Humans were a mistake." The Winnebago Mark II drifted lazily through orbit, its engines wheezing like an asthmatic bullfrog. From the viewport, Johnny Rains could see the alien capital below, still smoldering from the chaos he'd unleashed. He leaned back in the captain's chair, boots propped on the console, his mirrored aviators reflecting the dying glow of the city. Doris crackled over the speakers, her voice as dry as ever. "Well, congratulations. You've single-handedly destabilized the Galactic Union. Again, do you want a medal, or should I just embroider world's most dangerous husband on a pillow?" Johnny smirked. "Surprise me. You got half the Galactic fleet mobilizing. They're calling you a war criminal, Johnny. I prefer creative problem solver. You prefer chaos." He rolled a piece of gum between his fingers and popped it into his mouth. "Call it what you want, Doris. Thor cross a line. MM. And now you cross about 12 interstellar treaties, 5 war protocols, and an entire religion's code of honor. Good job." On the surface, General Thor cowered in his throne room. His once imposing armor lay in a heap, and the pink tutu he'd been forced to wear still clung to his massive frame, like a humiliating curse. Across every galactic news channel, the footage of him apologizing, tearfully no less, had already become a meme. Thor's advisors whispered among themselves. "We must retaliate," one hissed. "We can't," said another. "That ape! He broke our entire defense grid with a plunger and some tape. He's one man." "Exactly. And he still toppled our strongest regiments like dominoes." Thor's claws scraped against the floor. "Silence. This is not over." The Winnebago's proximity alarms wailed suddenly, snapping Johnny's attention to the console. "Doris, talk to me." Let's see. Oh, look. It's the entire Galactic Union fleet. 30 dreadnoughts, hundreds of cruisers, and a few thousand drones. And they're all here for you." Johnny grinned. "They sent the whole party, huh?" "You're outnumbered." "I'm always outnumbered." Doris sighed like a disappointed parent. "Johnny, even you can't." "Doris." "Yes." "Patch me through to their flagship." "Oh, good. We're doing the whole suicidal one-liner before a hopeless battle bit. Classic you." On board the Sovereign Wrath, Admiral Zelvas, a four-eyed insectoid with a voice like shattered glass, received the incoming transmission. The hologram flickered, revealing Johnny leaning lazily in his chair, chewing gum, aviators glinting. "Hi there," Johnny drawled. "Which one of you fine folks is in charge?" "I am Admiral Zelvas," the insectoid hissed. "You are surrounded. Human! Surrender immediately or be obliterated." Johnny chuckled. "You know where I come from. We got a saying, don't start a fight with a man who's already lost everything to lose." Zelvas bristled. "Your bravado will not save you." Johnny leaned forward, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "You laid hands on my wife. That's not bravado. That's a death sentence." The Admiral hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his alien features. Back in Winnebago, Doris muttered, "So what's the plan, cowboy?" "Duct tape their fleet together until implodes." Johnny's smirk didn't falter. "Something like that." "Johnny," her voice softened slightly, for once losing its sardonic edge, "you might not walk away from this one." "I know. You don't have to do this." He adjusted his rifle and holstered a plasma pistol. "Yeah, but they have to know." The first salvo screamed through space, brilliant streaks of energy tearing toward the Winnebago. Johnny slammed a button on the console. The ancient RV lurched violently, engine screaming as it dove into evasive maneuvers. Blast lit up the cockpit as he swerved through the onslaught, a mad grin plastered across his face. "Doris, how's the override coming?" "Working on it. You try hacking into a dreadnought with tech older than disco. Try harder. We're not leaving until I teach these bastards a lesson." On the Sovereign Wrath, chaos erupted. "Admiral, he's breached our systems." "That's impossible." "Sir, he's downloading something onto the fleet's core processors." Zelvas screeched. "What is it? A virus?" A weapon? The technician's mandibles quivered. No, Suts, he gulped. It's Rick Astley. On repeat. The opening bars of Never Gonna Give You Up blared across every comm channel in the fleet. Crews clutched their heads in confusion as the catchy tune infected every system. Johnny kicked back in his chair, whistling along. Y'all just got rickrolled by a human. Johnny, you're insufferable, Doris said, but he could hear the faintest smile in her voice. As the fleet floundered in digital disarray, Johnny armed the Winnebago's last resort, an overcharged reactor core set to detonate on his signal. Doris, time to go. Johnny, do it. The Winnebago shot forward, engines screaming as it plunged directly into the heart of the fleet. Alarms wailed, drones scrambled, and dreadnoughts tried to retreat, but it was too late. Johnny's voice cut through the panic one last time. Humans were a mistake, huh? The reactor core flared white-hot. Guess again. The explosion tore through space, engulfing the fleet in a brilliant wave of light. Later, the galaxy whispered of what had happened. They spoke of a human who'd walked into the jaws of death with nothing but grit, duct tape, and an attitude problem, and who had burned down the stars to avenge the woman he loved. On Earth, Cassie cradled her belly as she stared at the night sky, tears tracing her cheeks. Somewhere in the darkness, she swore she could hear a faint voice, cocky and full life, whispering, "Don't stop believing, darling." And for a heartbeat, the stars seemed to flicker like a wink.